Okay, so we're still working here in our sequence and series unit. Last lesson, we'll say yesterday, even though I'm recording again on the same day, yesterday we talked about arithmetic sequences. And what made an arithmetic sequence special was that it was being added or subtracted by the same number every time. It had what we call a common difference. Today we're going to shift gears to geometric sequences. Okay, there is a definite pattern in a geometric sequence. Now let me say this, we talked lesson before about arithmetic sequences. Now this lesson we're talking about geometric sequences. There could be a sequence of numbers that is neither of these. These are just two special ones. And an arithmetic sequence is special because it adds or subtracts the same number every time. The geometric sequence that we're going to look at today is special because it multiplies or divides the same number every time. So when we see a geometric sequence, that's what's going to be key to us, is that it multiplies or divides by the same number every time. So it has what's called a common ratio. R, a common ratio. So if I gave you the sequence 2, 6, 18, 54, and asked you to figure out what was going on here. Well, obviously, since I've given you the clue, geometric means it's being multiplied or divided by the same thing every time, you would be looking for that. If you didn't know that yet, let's say you had only seen the previous lesson, you would say, well, 2 plus 4 is 6. But wait a minute, 6 plus 4 is not 18. So it's not arithmetic, and you'd be correct. So now what makes it geometric? Well, here you go. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 times 3 is 54. So each of these terms is being multiplied by 3 to get to the next term. So we would say it has a common ratio of 3. Y'all follow that? 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 times 3 is 54. So if we wanted to know the next term, we would do 54 times 3. And then the next one, whatever that is, times 3, and so on. Okay, so that's how you get your common ratio. Now, other way to do it if you don't, this one was pretty easy, but let's say you didn't know it was times 3 every time. You would just say 6 divided by 2, see what you get. Is that the same thing as 18 divided by 6? Is that the same thing as 54 divided by 18? So you just divide and see if it gets you the same thing. Okay, so if we wanted to find the next 4 terms in this sequence, we could do that very easily. But what if I asked you for the 100th term? Like I said on the previous lesson, we wouldn't want to have to keep multiplying by 3 every time until we've written out 100 of these. That would be very time consuming. We could. We got nothing better to do. You don't have school going on other than virtually. But you could do that. But just like yesterday when we had an arithmetic formula, thankfully somebody long ago came up with the geometric formula. So I'm going to go to a new page so we can keep this nice and clean, because you need to make sure you're labeling these in your notes because they're easy to use, but they're very different formulas. The formula for our geometric sequence says we can find any term in that sequence by taking the first term, multiplying it by the common ratio to the term minus 1 power. Okay, so that's the formula that we're going to use for that. So if I go back and give you that same sequence that we had just a second ago, 2, 6, 18, 54, and I ask you now for the 14th term. What is the 14th term in that sequence? Okay, well, let's fill in our blanks in our formula over here, see what we're looking for, see what we can figure out. So we're looking for the 14th term, so I'm going to write a base 14 is equal to a1. Remember, a1 stands for your first term, so our first term is 2. So I'm going to put 2 in that place, times, you got to know your r. We figured that out on the previous page, but 6 divided by 2 is 3, 18 divided by 6 is 3, 54 divided by 18 is 3. So our common ratio, or r, is 3. To the n minus 1 power, what n are we looking for? 14. So we're going to write to the 14 minus 1 power. Okay? Alright, you can simplify that up now, and you can even skip that step as you're working that, but 14 minus 1 is 13 in most countries. So the 14th term is going to equal 2 times 3 to the 13th power. Now, 3 to the 13th power is nothing to cough at. That's a pretty big number. You're talking about 3 times 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 3. That's pretty big. And then when you get that, you're going to multiply it by 2, so you're going to double it. So this is going to be a humongous number. Does that make sense? Yeah, because right now, we've only got 4 numbers, and we're already to 54. So if we keep tripling these, multiplying them by 3 every time, by the time we get to 14, it's going to be a pretty big number. Now, I know you don't have the calculators in your tubs at home, but most of y'all got a calculator on your phone that can handle this. So I'm going to do 3 to the 13th power. I got, let me see here, 1,594,323, and then I'm going to multiply that by 2. Oops. So I'm just going to hit times 2. Let's see how I would say that number. 3,188,646. So our 14th term in this sequence is 3,188,646. So, if I had just asked you for like the 7th or 8th term, I probably wouldn't have done this. I would have just kept multiplying by 3 and got that. But think how much easier this formula is going to be if I had asked you for the 99th term or the 200th term. Okay? So save time for yourself on situations like that when you can. Alright, so pretty short and sweet. I told you I'm keeping them short and easy for you. Let's see here, let me label like I've been labeling up here. This is April the 8th, and this will be AMI day number 14 for your assignment. I've got 8 problems for you. The first 4 problems, I just want you to identify the R, the common ratio. Identify the R. Okay, and that's for numbers 1 through 4. So just tell me what R would equal for these 4. So 250 there, that's so ugly. And then number 3. And number 4. Okay, so for those 4, just all you got to do is identify the R. Now for the second 4, we're going to have 8 altogether. I want you to write the equation, and I'll do one of these with you to make sure we get the equation written correctly. Write the equation and then find the 8th term. So you've got 2 answers for all of these. Okay, so 5, 2, 4, 8, 16. We get them all written first, and then we'll go do number 5 together. Does that sound all right? 10, 50, 250, 7, 4, 12, 36, 108, and the last one. Okay, so let me get a new color here. I'll tell you what, we'll scoot this over to the dry erase board and do number 5 together. Let me make sure that you're still going to be able to see it on the camera when I move it over. Let's see, where are we at here? Okay, I'm going to scoot this over to the dry erase board, and we'll do number 5 together over there, and then I'll move it back for you after that. So, we got 2, 4, 8, 16. Make sure, I'm not sure how well you can see this. Oh, not very good at all, huh? Let me zoom that in a little bit for you. And I'll find a better marker too, see if that'll help. Okay, so 2, 4, 8, 16, I asked you to find the equation in the 8th term. So in our equation, that any term is equal to our first term times r to the n minus 1 power. Okay, so our first term, we're looking, our first term is 2, our r. We got to figure our r. So what's it being multiplied by every time? 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So our r in that case would be 2. So 2 to the n minus 1 power. Okay? Now, as far as your equation goes, that's all you're good. So that write the equation you have, that's your first answer. Now find the 8th term. So we're going to take that equation, let me circle that for my answer. We're going to take that equation and plug an 8 in now. Okay, so looking over there, we know on that exponent that 8 minus 1 is 7, right? So we've got 2 times 2 to the 7th power. Alright, 2's, I usually just do those in my head. I'm not going to get a calculator out after that or on anything. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64, times 2 is 128. So this 2 to the 7th is 128. And then when we multiply that by 2, so we bring that down, 128 times 2 is 256. So our 8th term would be 256. So for your number 5 answer, you would have both of those things that I've circled there. The equation and then 256. Okay? So I'll leave that there for you for just a second. And then I'll zoom it back over to the assignment again. Make sure everybody got it before I shut it down for the moment. Okay, let's go back and look at the assignment again here. Oh, I got to zoom it out. I forgot I zoomed it in on the... There you go. Let that focus in for you for a second.